Hey, have you ever felt like you're smart, creative, and fiercely independent, but also just completely, deeply alone? If that sounds familiar, then you're in the right place. We're about to dive into the unique and, let's be honest, often really difficult experience of being an INTP 5W4, a world where your own brilliant mind can feel like both your greatest fortress and your most inescapable prison.
Yeah, that quote, that pretty much hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of this whole thing. The idea that your biggest strength, that super sharp analytical mind of yours, is also somehow the source of your deepest struggles. So let's really get into why that is. So, what even is an INTP 5W4? Well, you got to think of it less like a single label and more like a really complicated cocktail. It's a mix of two totally different systems, and understanding how they interact is the key to, well, understanding everything.
Okay, so first up, you've got the INTP part from Myers-Briggs. This is the logician. Basically, your natural habitat is inside your own head. You see the world as a huge web of patterns and possibilities, you run on logic, and you hate being boxed in. You're the person who is always asking why. And then, on top of that, we layer on the Enneagram, the 5W4. The main number, type 5, is the investigator. This is where that relentless need to know things, to understand everything comes from. But then you have that wing 4, and that adds this flavor of the individualist, this deep, powerful drive to be unique, to be authentic, and to express something deeply personal.
And right there, that's the core conflict, isn't it? You end up with this thinker who feels everything so deeply, a logician who is obsessed with originality, a fiercely independent mind that secretly is just craving a real, profound connection with someone. It's this constant internal tug of war, and it really sets the stage for everything else.
So where does this internal battle lead? Well, it leads to our first big paradox, this feeling of being fundamentally alone even when you're surrounded by people. And the hardest part, it's that slow, dawning realization that you might be the architect of the very walls that are keeping you isolated. See, it all comes down to this. You don't do small talk. You just can't. You crave deep, meaningful connection, or you'd rather just be alone with your thoughts. For you, leaving that rich, complex inner world to go make chit-chat can literally feel like stepping out of a warm house into the freezing cold. Why would you do that? And this kicks off this absolutely soul-crushing cycle. Picture this. A friend texts you. You see it, and you genuinely want to reply. You really do. But you're deep in your head, so you just tell yourself, I'll get to it later. But later never comes. Time slips by, you forget, and then days later you remember with this horrible pang of guilt. And if you do that enough times, eventually people just stop reaching out, and you've isolated yourself completely, without ever meaning to.
All right, let's talk about the next trap, one that I'm sure is painfully familiar to a lot of you. It's that endless loop of overthinking, the one that leads to analysis paralysis and a personal graveyard of amazing, half-finished ideas. And what's driving all of this? What's the engine behind the overthinking? It's one single powerful fear, the fear of being incompetent. The thought of making the wrong choice, of looking stupid, of not being smart enough, that's what keeps the analysis engine running on overdrive.
And here's how that fear shows up. Instead of just picking a path, you tell yourself you just need a little more data. You get paralyzed because you're terrified of making the wrong decision. Or, you know the brilliant, perfect version of the project in your head can never be matched by what you actually create. So why even start? You get stuck researching and planning forever because, hey, as long as you're still analyzing, you haven't failed yet. This brings us to something that might be at the emotional core of the entire INTP 5W4 struggle. It's the robot misconception. People look at you and they think you don't feel anything. But the truth is, you feel everything. You just have no idea how to show it.
I mean, the gap between what people see and what's actually happening inside you is massive. They see this calm, detached robot. You feel a hurricane of internal chaos. They see cold logic. You're experiencing incredibly deep emotion. You say the words, I'm fine, but inside you are screaming, I am so not fine. And that is an incredibly lonely place to be.
And of course, this disconnect spills into all of your relationships. Someone you care about comes to you hurting, and they need empathy. But your first instinct? It's to troubleshoot their problem. You end up handing them a mental flowchart of potential solutions, when all they really wanted, all they needed, was for you to just sit there and say, wow, that sounds really, really hard. So, why?
Why is your mind wired like this? Are you broken? Is there some kind of fundamental flaw in the system? No, absolutely not. It's not about being broken at all. It's about how your mental tools are balanced.
Think of your mind like a toolkit, right? Your dominant function, that analytical, logical thinking, it's a state-of-the-art, powerful supercomputer. It's incredible. But your inferior function, the one responsible for emotional navigation and human connection, well, it's a bit underdeveloped. It's like having a supercomputer for solving problems, but a flip phone from 2003 for dealing with feelings. The result is a mind that is absolutely brilliant at logic, but kind of clumsy with people.
Okay, that was a lot of the tough stuff. But now we get to the hope. Because the very same traits that cause you all this pain, believe it or not, they are also the source of your greatest potential gifts. You just have to learn how to reframe them. This is where we flip the entire script. That tendency to get stuck in analysis paralysis, that's also the engine that drives profound self-awareness. Your stubborn, frustrating independence, that's also a powerful, unwavering self-reliance. And all that emotional turmoil churning inside you, that is the raw fuel for some of the most beautiful, rich creativity imaginable.
And this leads us to maybe the single most important takeaway from all of this. The goal is not to stop being an INTP 5W4. It's not about trying to perform a personality transplant and become someone you're not. The path forward is all about finding balance, about learning when to trust your powerful logic and when to take a risk and let yourself be human.
And I really want to leave you with this idea. Please, hear this. You are not broken. You are simply learning a very, very advanced skill that most people never even have to think about. You're learning how to be simultaneously, brilliantly intelligent, and messily, beautifully human.
So if any of this resonated with you, if you felt even a little bit seen, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. Which piece of this complicated, weird, wonderful puzzle felt the most true to your own experience? Because just thinking about that, that's the first real step toward understanding yourself and ultimately finding that balance.